So let's talk about the NYPD. Would you increase or decrease the budget for the NYPD, which is reportedly $10 billion?
Right now, to me, the task is to activate the resources we're already investing and deploy them more effectively so they're actually solving crimes. Right now, 3 out of 4 shootings in Brooklyn are going unsolved. Think about that, Clay. You're never going to get the shootings down at that rate. So, as you said, we're investing very, very significant resources. We should not accept a clearance rate of 25% for these shootings. And so we need to invest in the gun violence suppression division, and other measures, but that doesn't mean growing the budget. We already have, as you said, billions of dollars of resources allocated and thousands of officers. We just need to deploy them in ways that will actually get the crime rate heading down instead of up.
So you're saying that you would keep the budget the same, you wouldn't increase or decrease it?
Yeah, I think we need to use our resources more effectively. And the problem right now is that we're just not solving these crimes.
But let me ask you this, if we aren't using the resources effectively, why does the NYPD need a budget of $10 billion?
Well, the first task ahead of us right now is to get these shootings down, the hate crimes down, get New Yorkers feeling safe. And so if we're spending billions of dollars and the number one issue that's facing New York is public safety, to me, the first task is, again, to make sure that we're actually getting results and driving results. Right now, over 2/3 of New Yorkers want more cops instead of less. And we have thousands of retiring cops that we need to replace. I would love to replace them with recruits straight from Black and brown neighborhoods throughout New York City so that our police force actually represents the communities that they're meant to protect.
Okay, you've cited Bloomberg as a model for how you would like to lead the city. I got to be honest with you, Mr. Yang, when I heard that, that kind of terrified me. Bloomberg was not liked among Black voters, especially stop and frisk and refusing to pay the exonerated $5. What do you mean by that you would model your run the city like Bloomberg did?
Oh, thank you for asking this question, Clay. I was asked a question specifically about whether I would be delegating to people in my administration or what I think the question was around micromanaging. And I appreciated Bloomberg's emphasis on trying to bring in talented people and giving them a degree of autonomy and agency. That is the way I think that the city needs to operate given the number of crises we're facing. But of course, I agree that stop and frisk was the wrong policy and would never want to bring it back.
All right, so Eric Adams recently accused you of having a quote unquote hint of racism for questioning if he lives in New York City or New Jersey. What's your reaction to that?
I think the facts speak for themselves. I certainly wouldn't want to go into. I guess I could for your listeners, but there are very legitimate questions that were raised by journalists about where Eric lives, and I can't see any racial element to asking the same questions, given I think a lot of New Yorkers of every background are interested, really. I was interested when I first saw the story. I was like, well, what? But I certainly don't think that Eric's race has anything to do with it.
Well, just to be, we've invited Mr. Adams on the show, and we have yet to get a response. I do have to, I know you've gotten this question a lot, but I just do have to ask you for my audience. There is this conversation of you not voting in so many city elections. You didn't vote in any, I guess, mayoral elections between 2001 to 2017. Why should New Yorkers, especially Black New Yorkers, trust you to run the city when you didn't even vote in so many elections?
I certainly was not as involved with city politics as many other people, but New Yorkers know what I've been up to the last several years. Before that, I started a family. I'm a public school parent, so we're deeply invested in the success of our schools in the city. I started a nonprofit that created thousands of jobs in majority minority communities around the country. And then I ran for president and activated millions of people around ideas of cash relief and universal basic income. I went to Georgia, and John Ossoff recently credited me with helping deliver the Senate to Chuck Schumer. So we all have different ways of contributing and serving. Certainly, I appreciate the people who've been more engaged in local politics, and I hope that we can help get the city back on its feet.
But why weren't you voting? Was it because you're a rich, privileged guy and you just didn't think voting was necessary?
Well, I voted in the gubernatorial. I voted in the presidential. About 76% of registered Democrats in New York City haven't participated in the mayoral election, and I agree. It's something I'd love to see go up. We're actually seeing evidence right now that 37% of the people who've cast early votes thus far in this mayoral election have never voted before in a mayoral election. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people sense that this is a distinct moment in the city's history.
So I have to ask you this question. During one of the presidential debates, I heard you say that people think Trump is here just because of racism, but that it was really economic anxiety and losing jobs. But that has been debunked in a big article in the New York Times, that it wasn't about people afraid of losing their job. It was about losing their status. So what do you say to people who feel like someone like you in that moment, you didn't take the moment to really call out what it really was with Trump, which I would argue was white people afraid of the other, and Trump profiting off of that. That basically the Southern strategy.
What was interesting, Clay, is I was in Georgia trying to help Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff, and everyone in Georgia was just inundated with these ads that were making the same case you're describing, where it was vote for David Perdue to save America, and then it would show pictures of Reverend Warnock with
Right.
people of color. Just it was really nasty, very
Right.
very very obviously race baiting, and being inundated by these commercials made me want to do everything in my power again to make sure that did not win. that Georgia repudiated that, and it wasn't by a vast margin. Reverend Warnock won by more than John Ossoff did, in part because Kelly Loeffler had a much lower real relationship with the voters of Georgia than Purdue did. But of course, race has played a key role in the national political landscape, and in state races all over the country. It's at this point essentially like the Republican core message in many regards, as I saw. But I do think that these two forces are hand in hand. They're happening simultaneously. That if you can imagine a country where people didn't have concerns about their own deteriorating way of life, or fleeing industries, or the fact that their kids can't afford to go to college and they're going to have a lower standard of living, and then you introduce race into that, then people are much more likely to lash out at others than if they felt secure in their children's future. So I do think everything is tied together. In many ways right now in this country, there's a battle between a mindset of scarcity and a mindset of abundance. Mindset of scarcity is, if you're getting it, then it's bad for me, and we should all look out for ourselves. And that's winning in this country because so many people are struggling and insecure, and we failed people over years and years and years. A mindset of abundance, which is in short supply nowadays, is that, well, if you're doing well, then that's probably good for me, and there's more than enough to go around, and we can invest in multiple things at once, and it's fine, instead of making it seem like if you get that, then the other thing has to get less. Despite the fact that the federal government is spending trillions of dollars, there's still very much a mindset of scarcity that pervades many of these conversations, and that's why I ran for president, was to change that, because we do have the power to make the day-to-day lives of people much more comfortable and abundant if we just came together and decided to do so, as Dr. King said back in 1967.
So I want to be clear here. So do you feel differently than you felt at the debate when you said that it wasn't racism, it was economic anxiety? Do you feel different after that experience in Georgia, or you feel the same?
I've always felt, and it could be that in the debate answer, like I was emphasizing a particular point, but I've always felt that race and economics operate hand in hand in this country, and that unfortunately they're turbocharging each other in really, really destructive ways.
Where do you stand on qualified immunity?
I think that we have to make sure that police officers are held to real standards, and that if they do something wrong or criminal, that they face appropriate consequences.
Do you want to see it ended, though, qualified immunity?
No, I want to make sure that both New Yorkers are safe and also that officers are held accountable.
The filibuster, where do you stand on that? Should we end the filibuster?
We should end the filibuster. I mean, at this point, and I want everyone to reflect on this. The filibuster is made up. Like, it's not in the Constitution. It's an arcane procedural rule that the Senate self-adopted. And imagine being a legislative body where you make it more difficult for your own body to do its job. That's really what the filibuster is. There is no magical threshold around 60. It's hard enough to get something done with a majority. And our country's in crisis mode. We need to act. We need to operate. So let's get rid of the filibuster and help try to get our government and country operating at a higher level.
Last question, Mr. Yang. I spoke to so many people, and a lot of people that I've heard, they've said, I don't trust Andrew Yang. I think he just wants to be a politician. He just wants power. I just don't trust him. He's ran for president, now running for mayor of New York. What's next? Governor of New York if he loses. What's your response to folks who feel that you are more of a rich opportunist?
No, nothing could be further from the truth, genuinely. And that, I don't have actually much of a native interest in the trappings of office, like a fairly normal, even somewhat introverted family guy. I spent 6.5 years running a nonprofit that I founded. I'm trying to solve problems. I'm interested in impact. If we could get the things done that I want to get done and no one had ever heard of Andrew Yang, I couldn't be happier.